Hi, I'm Stephanie with Crosscut Sewing, and today I want to show you how to make one of my favorite easy projects, which is these key fobs. I love to make these because they're so quick to make, but also they make great gifts. You can give them to just about anyone. And if you are doing any craft fairs or things like that, they are really a great item to sell. They're a great item that anybody can pick up, and you can kind of have a few things at your booth that have a little bit of a lower cost. So to make these, you need a few things. You need some webbing. I like to use the 1-inch wide webbing. You can use 1 1/4 or 1 1/2 if that's what you have. Just make sure that your hardware is the same size as your webbing. I also like the synthetic webbing. This is a polyester cotton blend, and I like it better than the all cotton just because it's a little bit softer. But either will work. And you will need either some fabric, which I'll show you how to fold your fabric so you can use fabric scraps. It's a great scrap buster because you really don't need much. And you could also use ribbon. I like to make these with ribbon because it's just even that much faster. And I'm sure that you probably have a box of little pieces of ribbon like this somewhere, or you see these beautiful embroidered ribbons in the craft stores and you never are quite sure what to do with them. So this is a great way to use them and also display them. In addition, you will need your key fob hardware. So you will need one of these little strap ends here and a key ring. I have these 3 items, the webbing, the ribbon, and the key fob, available in kits at crosscutsewingco.com. I have lots of different colors, and these have everything that you need. They have the webbing, the ribbon, and 3 sets of the hardware. So each kit will make 3 of these key fobs. In addition to your supplies for this project, you will need a couple of clips if you have them. If you have a bias tape maker and you are using fabric, it's a great chance to use that. You'll need some scissors, a glue stick. It doesn't have to be a fabric glue stick. Any glue stick will work. A little bit of glue for the strap ends. So I like to use either fray check or a fabric glue, like a tacky glue on the ends of these. But if you just have school glue, that will work too. If you are using all synthetic, you can actually use a lighter to seal these ends. So just kind of run a lighter over them. And the same thing with the synthetic ribbon. If your ribbon is a synthetic material, you can just run the lighter over the ends of these, and that will seal them so you don't need the glue. You will also need some pliers. So I love these Studio Pro pliers, and I also have these on my website. If you're making a lot of these, it's worth it to have these because they are 1 inch wide. So they are the same width as the 1-inch hardware, and they also are covered with this kind of coating, so they're not going to scratch your hardware. But if you are only making a few or you only have regular pliers, those will work too. So let's get started. I already cut these. I cut my webbing to 12 inches. 12 inches is on the generous side. I wouldn't go too much longer than that. It will fit around your wrist really nicely. If you have a smaller hand or just want these to be a little bit smaller, you could go as small as 10 inches. And these are great too because if you are always losing your keys, you can hang it on the doorknob when you come in so you know where your keys are, or if you have some hooks for your keys, you can always hang them on those too. So if you are using the ribbon, you would just run a little bit of your glue stick right down the center. The glue just holds it in place. You don't really need it. You could clip it, or you could try to just sew it without it. I just like the extra insurance of having it in place. So I also, because my webbing's 1 inch, I like to use ribbon that is a little bit less than 1 inch because I like a little bit of the webbing to show on each side there. So that's why for my fabric strip here, I'm going to use, oops, not that one, that's a 1/2 inch, that will make a 1/2 inch bias. I cut this on the straighter grain. I'm saying bias tape maker because that's what they're called. You don't have to cut this on the bias, you can cut it straight. This would be 1 inch, so it would be the same width as my webbing. I want a little bit to show, so I'm going to use my 3/4 inch bias tape maker. So I cut this, I like to cut this a little longer than I need and then trim it once it is folded. So I cut this at a little bit of an angle here, just like that, and that just helps me get it right into this bias tape maker. All right, I'm going to use this little handle. I like to just pin this down. These are the Eversewn glass head pins, so if my iron touches it, it's not going to melt. So that's kind of nice for projects like this. I'm just going to run this right down like this, and you can see it nicely folds those edges in nice and even for me. If you want to use fabric and you don't have this, you can just fold the raw edges towards the middle and press them, and that will work just fine. So the same thing, I'm going to leave it a little bit longer and trim it at the end. I already heat sealed these edges. Going to try to keep that even, so I see just about the same amount of the webbing on either side. I don't want to pull that, because if you pull it and then when this bends, it will look a little puckery, so try not to pull it too tight. And now I'm just going to stitch this. So in my machine, I have gray thread in the bobbin and white thread in the top because I don't want the thread to show too much on my my white fabric here. So you're just going to try to stitch about 1/8 of an inch on the fabric. And you do want to back stitch. I'm going to go a little bit slower there so I can make sure it's nice and even. Straighten out a little. And then I'm going to go ahead and go right down the other side. I am sewing on the Eversewn Sparrow 25, and you can see it has no problem with the thickness of this webbing. Most machines should be able to handle it. You're really just sewing over one layer. If you are having trouble, you could try a heavy-duty needle. That might help a little bit. Or if you have a walking foot, you could try that too, but I have no problems with it, as you could see. All right, looks great. So now I'm just going to cut off the ends of this. If I hadn't already sealed my edges and they were starting to fray a little, I might snip those as well. Like I said, I already sealed those. So if you have a cotton webbing and you want to seal this, I would just use a little bit of fray check or any kind of glue. instead of trying to put it on the end, what I like to do is just get a little scrap of cardboard or something like that and put a little puddle of glue and then just kind of lightly dip the ends in and then just let that dry before I put the strap ends on. So I'm going to go ahead and take this. Just going to fold this one in half. Sometimes I just put a little clip like that to hold them. So if you have one handy, you can even use a binder clip just to hold that so you can kind of get those in there and make sure everything is lined up and looking nice and neat like that. Now, if you are using regular pliers, you don't want to scratch this hardware, so you could either put some fabric over the hardware here and then clamp down on it, or you could wrap some tape around the ends of your pliers to protect it a little bit. But since I have these, I'm going to go ahead and just clamp that right down. Make sure each end is really on there. Get that little thread that's bothering me. And then we just add the ring. And we have our key fob. So you can see how easy that is, and they're great to assembly line and make a whole bunch at once so that you have them to give out. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at hello@crosscutsewingco.com or leave a comment. Thanks for sewing with me.